To me. Majestic talks. Come and talk to me. Talk to me, to me. Majestic talks. Come and talk to me. Majestic talks. Come and talk to me. Majestic talks. Come and talk to me, to me.
Welcome to the Majestic Talk Show. I'm your host, Latasha Morgan, professional and Christian life coach, board certified mental health coach, and welcome to the show. Today we have with us Reverend Latasha Gresham. She's going to be joining us today. Tell everybody hello.
Hello, 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 beautiful people.
And welcome to the show. It's great to have you here with me.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, y'all. Today we have a few objectives for today. We're going to be summarizing the previous shows we've done. We're going to talk about the guilt and shame of Moses. We're going to define what guilt and shame is. We're going to see how Moses fits into guilt, and that's our client for today. And we're also going to discuss the steps we have to take to get out of shame and guilt. So let's get started. Now, we were talking about, on the last two shows, we talked about knowing what our purpose is and how we can allow things to hinder us from fulfilling that purpose. And if you recall, we talked about if you're standing on the top of Masada, and you had a book bag, which is what they carry in Israel, so that you'll be fully prepared for anything. So that you will have water there, a hat, everything you need to be able to survive. So if you were standing on that mountain and someone called your name because they were hurt and they needed your help, what would you do? What would your response be? And we talked about other things that would hinder us from doing that. Maybe it's that you feel you're not worthy of doing it, that you don't have the things you need to do it, or people are not going to listen to you, or hey, there's a whole lot of people around them, why don't they help? Not understanding that the call is for you and you're destined for that person. Then on that show, we talked about where those things that hinder us come from. We discussed that Moses and how what his shame and guilt came from was from the fact that when he left Egypt, he was rejected. He told God on the mountain when he was at the burning bush that, hey, God, I can't do this because I stutter. Don't you know that? Hey, I can't do this. Why did he say that? It's because before he left, the Hebrews, when he was telling the Hebrews, why should they fight against each other? What did they say? Who are you? Are you going to kill us like you did the Egyptians? And then he fled Egypt because of that. So we discussed that. Now today we're going to discuss the guilt and shame he had. And we're going to give you a few steps to take to get out of guilt and shame. Because I believe that everything goes back, no matter what your hindrance is, no matter what wall is there that has to come down, they all go back to shame and guilt. Because those are the questions, the responses you always give, the excuses you always make. I'm not good enough. I can't do that. Remember the last time what happened? Remember, God, I failed you last time, or I failed my community, I failed my family, I failed myself. Though all that is shame and guilt. So, what is guilt? Now, guilt is a feeling of deep regret or remorse caused by a feeling of believing being responsible for something, a moral emotion. And it's more about the act instead of about you. It's more about what you did. What I did was bad versus I am bad. Shame is the opposite of that. It says that I am bad because of what I've done. Now, we go back to Moses being at the bush, and he says to God that I can't do it because I stutter. He's saying that because before he left Egypt, at the age of 40, he was there talking to his Hebrew brothers. His whole point was to let them see that God was going to deliver them through him. But because they rejected that, he left, and that bruised his ego. Because before that, the Bible says that he was mighty in words and in deeds, meaning he was able to speak to people with confidence and boldness, going around representing the Pharaoh. Because you couldn't do that. You couldn't have low self-esteem and stuff being in the palace with the Pharaoh and going out representing him, because he considered himself to be God, the creator of all things, which is what the word Egypt comes from, because Ptah means is the word for Egypt, which means creator or creator of things. So he was showing the Hebrews that he was their deliverer. And he knew that because he had to be taught that before. That's why it's so important to know what your name means and who you are. Because when you're faced with certain circumstances and situations, that'll come back to you, and you'll be able to be encouraged to continue what you're supposed to be doing because you know what it is. But what happened to him, he knew what it was because he was taught that. And the meaning of your name was major back then, because you were always named according to what the situation is or what God had already perceived and put in the hearts of your parents to name you. So a name was big then. They knew who they were and had no problem with, they had some problems, but they knew what they were supposed to be doing. So Moses, knowing that and being rejected, that caused him to have trauma. And many people think that he stuttered before, but he didn't stutter until he had been rejected. Guilt and shame has a tendency to degrade you to a place where you think you're nothing. Because shame is a real deep issue. It says that this is what I think about myself based on what I've heard people say, because the Hebrews said, who are you? Are you going to kill me just like you did the Egyptian? I don't know you. I mean, who are you to think that you can deliver me? That's the same thing we can think about for ourselves. We think that about ourselves. And though we've heard it, we come in agreement with it, and it begins to come out of your mouth. That's why you have to watch what you say.
So, Coach Latasha, are you saying that in that case, when we may come into encounter with rejection, that we take that on and begin to reject our own self?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Because you conform to what has been said to you and about you. And you want to hide when you experience shame and guilt. It causes you to hide. That's one of the signs of guilt and shame. Guilt, one of the signs you have low self-esteem. You put others before yourself, regardless of the detriment that it causes you, because you have no thought or care for yourself. In other words, you feel that you deserve something that isn't good. You have no value or worth. So then shame comes in, and then you have you want to disappear. They are angry. They blame themselves because shame looks inward. And that's why you have people that have certain addictions. And but when you keep doing that, and hold on, think about Moses was in this position 40 whole years. 40. That's a long time to be in shame and guilt. And then it causes problems. Now, it doesn't say that it caused him physical problems because they were a lot healthier probably.
And I want to bring a point to that 40 years because if, you know, for those who are Bible literate, we know that you know, Moses, the time frame, that 40 years you talk about is from the age 40 to the age 80. But let's bring that in and bring it home to some people. Something could have happened to you when you were 12, and so now you're 52 and you're still not moving fully in who God has called you to be, because that's 40 years. Something could have happened to you when you were 7 and you're now 47. And so I'm just trying to narrow in those 40 years, because when you talk in biblical time, that sounds a lot, or you just say 40 years. But when you actually, I'm just trying to give it some perspective to see how relevant it is now.
Yeah, that's true. Because we sit in, especially Black people, you know, we sit and we hold things because we don't want people to know. Again, shame. We don't want them to know that, hey, we're not as good as we seem to be. Or this happened to me. It's not, when something happens to you as a child, it is not your fault. It's not, the guilt, it becomes false. Because there's a thing, you have to know what guilt you have. Is it real or is it false? It means you interpret it to be yours, so you're guilty. You feel guilty for
I just
it.
want to say that again. The guilt, is it real or is it false? There's a such thing as false guilt. Again, when we internalize something that's not ours.
Right. And then we're dealing with the shame and guilt and don't want to be. And then we find ourselves with mental problems. Because those things, prolonged guilt and shame, cause mental problems. And if you already have a mental problem, that makes it worse. You see what I'm saying? It causes problems in your body. See, we just associate these things with just being a thing that we feel. But your emotions have a whole lot to do with your physical ability to do things. Shame and guilt has the ability to totally debilitate you. You know, everything starts in your spirit, right? It starts in the spirit and work its way up to manifesting in the natural. So when you have guilt and shame, you open the door, because then you got unforgiveness. You see what I'm saying? You open up the door for all physical things to come in and take place as well.
I see on the screen here we're up to Zipporah cutting off the foreskin and going on. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay. Now, after Moses hears God, what he says and what he's going to do, he said, you're going to bring the people out of Egypt. Now, he tells him to go back to Egypt because some of the people have already died. The Pharaoh that he was afraid of had already died. So he's on his way back. The Bible says that he's on his way and they're lodging in a place. In other words, they're resting, you know, before they proceed to move along. So God comes in and he tries to kill Moses. Now, why would God do that when he just told him that I'm going to use you to bring the people of Israel out? Now, wouldn't that make God seem foolish and make him seem crazy? You know, like you have a mood swing or something? I mean, why are you trying to kill me when you just told me that? Well, here's the thing I see. God had to confirm to Moses who he was. He was sending Moses into Egypt to show Pharaoh who God was. Because Again, Pharaoh thought he was God, right? He thought, and that's what Egypt means. He thought he was the creator. He had control over everything. And if you see everything that happened during that time when Moses went back and all the plagues and stuff that came upon Egypt, he was literally just showing him that he is God. So in order for Moses to show Pharaoh that he was God, God had to show Moses he was God. Because remember at the bush, what did he say? God, I can't do this. I can't speak. I stutter. I'm slow of speech. I'm going to look like a fool up there. They're going to sit there and laugh at me. And it's going to take like 30 minutes for me to get a word out. So Pharaoh is not going to sit there that long to listen to me. But God said, do I not know your mouth? Am I not God? So what did he do? Moses is on his way back. Now keep in mind that when he was Pharaoh tried to kill him, the person who thought he was God tried to kill him, a woman saved him, his mother. He ran out of Egypt into Midian. Now going out, he had to come out the way he went in. There was a threat when he came out of Egypt. When he's coming out of Midian, there's a threat on his life. So what does Zipporah do? Zipporah does. She cuts off the foreskin of her son and throws it at his feet, meaning circumcision. Circumcision. Why can I say it?
Circumcision. We got it. Somewhere in between the two of us, we got it. Y'all know what we mean.
You didn't want to come out. But that means sacrifice of salvation, safety. That means that you're saved, you're forgiven. God had to confirm that he was forgiven before he can go back in. He had to make sure he knew that only he had the power and the authority to give and take life. So regardless of him going back, and Moses could have been afraid going back, they might get him since Pharaoh was mad at him before. When another Pharaoh comes on the throne, normally he wants to handle whatever situation his father could not have or what needs to be taken care of, and his father died before he could do so. So maybe he was thinking in his mind, they're going to try to kill me. I ain't going to even get a chance. But God had to confirm that he has the power. And then after that, then he shows Pharaoh who has the power as well. So now 40 years, that means testing and trials. He was in there. He was in the wilderness leading around sheep when he was supposed to be leading out people. But even though you're in a place where you're not being, like we was talking about earlier, you're in a place where you're not actually flowing in your purpose and you're hiding, you're still learning. And all of that you're experiencing, everything he experienced in the wilderness then, the Israelites experienced when they came out. Because in that place of strife, Midian strife, didn't they strive against each other? Didn't they whine about stuff all the time? And he was able to deal with him. He never lost the fact who he was, even after coming out, bringing them out of Egypt. So he was secure in what he was called to do.
So in other words, basically, our spiritual, our God DNA is going to cause us to act in a manner that represents who we are. But we have to, if we stay in guilt, if we stay in shame, or if we don't come to a place of relationship with the Father, we won't reach our God-given destiny or our beneficial and be beneficial to us in fullness. And the fullness of what God has for us. And I find that a lot of times I can pull it out, myself, of other people who they are who they are. I've known people, in one phase of their life and then in another phase and they're doing great things. And it's like, I could see where it was always there. They just had not come to a realization of it, yet.
So you are who you are, like you said. And no matter where you are, what you're doing, you still going to operate in who you are because you were born and God brought you into this earth as a package deal.
Wow.
Everything you needed to flow and function on this earth and to fulfill. God didn't put you here or anybody else here just to put you here so he can just look at you and say, hey. I mean, that would be unnecessary. He can tell the angels that. I mean, they can't talk to him on the same level as we would because we are made in his image and likeness. But he would need you if
that was it.
Yeah. There would be no purpose of him making you if you weren't supposed to do anything. It doesn't matter if you just here to reach one person, if you're just here to help one person come out of whatever situation they're in, as long as you fulfill the purpose you were given. And it's easy. And people can't say that, oh my goodness, I don't know, who I am or what I'm supposed to do. I don't know that. How am I gonna know? I don't even talk to God. And some people will say, I asked him, he said, and I guess not, because he told you when you were born. The first time they called your name, they confirmed everything all of who you were then. It's all just like Moses when Pharaoh's daughter said his name, she said, his name shall be Moses because I drew him out of the water. Moses means to draw out. He was purposed to draw out the people of Israel out of Egypt into the land God promised. Now, he didn't get to the land because of his personality there and his anger, that sea personality, conscientious, cautious person. He didn't get into the promised land, but he was able to see it, but he did draw the people out. So now, how could you get out of shame and guilt? What can you do to make sure that you come out and we don't want people to hold on to it. So what do they need to do? So there are 5 steps here that I give. Number 1, you got to ask yourself 4 questions. When we were talking about real guilt and false guilt, what do you feel guilty about? You have to know that. When did the event occur? We know that Moses occurred when he was at 40, when he was talking to the Hebrews and they were struggling with each other. We knew it happened then. So what have you done about the feelings of guilt related to the event? And did you commit a sin or act? A sinful act? Because guilt is when you do something that's against morality. So you have to ask yourself those questions. Once you have asked yourself and you know what it is, then you need to face it and sit in it. Because when he ran from, he didn't confront it. So he spent 40 years in the wilderness and still had to go back and face what he was trying for.
Wow.
Because, see, then they believed him that he was the chosen one, right? So he had to face it.
He had to face. That's powerful. I just want to sit in that for like about 5 seconds. That after 40 years, he still had to go back and face. So one of the steps to dealing with it is facing it. And just like we were talking about earlier, if the guilt is real or not. So you have to, in step 1, the prerequisites is ask those questions to identify if it's a real guilt or not. Because we can stop there if we figure out it's not a real guilt. But then even if it is, we have to face it.
And sit in it.
Wow.
You have to experience the emotions that were necessary at that moment. Don't look at yourself based on today.
Wow.
Look at yourself based on what you were then.
Wow.
Because then you'll see that I've grown, I'm matured. Now I can move on. Okay? So after you face it, you got to watch your mouth. You got to watch what you say. because what you say got you into this place. You had to, in order for you, and I don't want to get ahead of myself though, so in order for you to, the next step is you gotta, with the same vigor and responsibility that you took to discourage yourself, you gotta encourage yourself the same way. Because see, that's why you have to watch your mouth, because your mouth puts you in shame and guilt, saying that I'm not this, I'm not that. Why am I so stupid? Why am I done? Because your body, when you speak something, it is not only biblical, but it's a scientific fact that your body responds to what you say.
Wow.
So if I say I'm dumb and I'm stupid, I can't do this, I can't do that, that's exactly what you're going to do. That's what's going to happen. And you're sitting around wondering, oh, Lord, what happened to me? I used to be this, I used to be that. But that's simply because of what you said. Okay. And what you believed and grabbed on hold to. The last step is you got to forgive yourself. And then, if necessary and possible, ask for forgiveness from others. That's how you get out. Because when forgiveness takes place, whether it's you forgiving yourself for something you've done, and or if it's something somebody has done to you or you have done to them, when you forgive, then you're free. If you take those steps, you'll be done with it, and you can.
And there's one last thing. I noticed how you worded it in the notes. Forgive yourself first, because if it's not possible, if it's a person and they've passed on or whatever, or if they just in their self choose not to forgive you, it's okay, because you've already forgiven you.
And you can move on and let go. Because the forgiveness is actually for you in a way. Not exactly for the other person, but for you to heal and you to be delivered and you to be free, so that you can move and operate in the purpose God has given you. Now, we said earlier that we can't say that we don't know what purpose is, or what our purpose is, or what we've been placed on this earth to do. And I said that it's in your name. So now I had you to look it up. Now you got to study yourself, just like you study. Because Black people are considered the ones who study the Bible more than anybody. Like you study the Word, study yourself, because you're created in His image and His likeness. So you're a vast person. There are a lot of different things in you that you need to know and to discover. So I asked you to look up your name, your first, your middle, and your last. You need to know what your gifts are and what your personality is, why you do the things you do, because they all work together. That's your package deal that God gave you. You came with a package. You just got to know what's in it. You got to know how to do it, what to do with it. You got to be able to live in it. So when I asked you to pick out 3 things that you got from looking up your name, your gifts, and your personality. So go ahead, tell me.
Well, with my personality, and the way the personality test is set up is called DISC, is dominance, influence, steadiness, and compliance. And influence was one of my top of those 4. It was actually second. Dominance was first, and influence was second. Well, I found that interesting, being that my spiritual giftings, my number 1 gift was shepherding, which, to break down, could kind of mimic pastoring. Doesn't mean to be a pastor, but for another term to equate it with, was shepherding, and which it makes sense to me that you would have to be dominant and influential to shepherd, because if we just go back to the original term of a shepherd, or the occupation of it, being in the pasture, David was a shepherd. He influenced, he had to dominate over that which tried to attack, his flock, the sheep, and then he had to have influence with the sheep to guide them, wherever they were supposed to be moving the herds to. So I found that very interesting. And then to bring that over to my name, my middle name, Tierra, means earth. And my married name, Gresham, means village or green pastures. So all of that just kind of just really connected. And I thought that was just majorly incredible. Now, if I go to my maiden name, which is Scott, which is a wanderer. And I didn't like that at first because wanderer has like a negative connotation, like someone who kind of doesn't know, what they're doing or where they're going or don't have a plan. But as I looked at my life and how God uses me, that's not necessarily so. It could just be a person who is on the move, in which the lower two of my personality were steady and compliant, which makes sense because that kind of equates to like stability or organization, which a person who moves a lot that's not going to be so. And it also goes with one of my third highest spiritual gifting, which was serving. And if you're serving, you're you're moving, you're helping people, you're in different situations, you find yourself in different situations. Even if we just think about a servant in the terms of a maid or a butler or something like that, they're moving around, the home that they serve at or whatnot. So it all just made sense to who I am. As far as even with my business, the Wanderer, I have different clients, with everybody's got something different going on. So I'm here and I'm there, as far as conceptually, coming up with ideas and helping them to build their businesses or build whatever it is they do. Then my mind is wondering because I'm not in just one lane. I'm in many lanes with them. When I think about my servanthood with my ministry and with my pastor, even just with my friends and family, shepherding, I'm influential in all areas of my life. So it just makes so much sense with who I am and who I am becoming. And that's another thing. I find this to be, I really think people should do it, and you should do it periodically, because what I find is as God grows you, you're going to find that these things shift. And that's not a bad thing. It's just showing your growth. It's showing where God is leading you into your destiny.
The gifts would grow but not change. The personality, who you are in front of everyone, couldn't change. But the personality you are in private won't change. It's permanent. Your gifts can grow and mature, because some of yours were like right behind the rest of them. And that's actually a good thing, because that means that you're able to function in a lot of different places, which good for wandering, being a wanderer. So, but I found that amazing because I always love for people to do it, because people get so excited. And psychologists say people love to discover themselves. And when you discover yourself, when you know who you are, then a lot of stuff you won't take and deal with.
Right.
And knowing where you're supposed to be is important, because those same gifts, they may be spiritual gifts, but they work in the natural as well. They tell you where you should be working, what area you should work in. So that's amazing, and that's awesome right now. And I could tell you so excited about it because she had a whole sermon. Oh, Reverend Rev, we're getting started over there. But yeah, we have to get out of here. So Thank you so much for coming to our show today. Well, you didn't come, but you joined us online. So we'll see you next time. Next time, we're going to talk about burnout and how important it is that we operate in our gifts because it keeps other people from burning out. Okay. Mm-hmm. So we'll talk to y'all next time, next month, the month of June. Again, this is Latasha Morgan, the professional and Christian life coach, board certified mental health life coach, and our co-host today, Natasha Gresham. Thank you so much for being here. Absolutely. We'll see you next time on the Majestic Talk Show. Y'all have a nice night.
Talk to me.